Bruce, I don't really want to picture you in those.
That was the sound of the car.
Has anyone heard of a Hino Contessa? This was Bruce's first car. I don't know if it was that colour, but I'd never heard of one. They make trucks these days. Well, you might be surprised at what Bruce's favourite music was back in 1983.
Still popular, ABBA. There you go.
This is the new arrival at South Dunedin Baptist.
Control yourselves, ladies, please.
And actually, we've got a photo of the induction service. Well, this part of it. It's not very clear, pretty dark, but it's them up the front. This is Jill in different years, serving in the school nearby, in the child centre. And who's this? Can those two come up on stage, please? I'd love to hear from you. Because preceding Bruce and Jill at South Dunedin Baptist Church was Paul Bernard. And I understand that Paul was recruited there as their worship leader from Hanover Street Baptist. A youth worker. And Janet was just quietly saying she was the draw card.
Yes, that's true.
Is this Victoria being dedicated? We got that correct? Okay. Oldest daughter.
Well, I'm quite keen to hear what brought Bruce to South Dunedin Baptist, if you can remember. What do you remember about these guys arriving?
One child and one on the way? Two children. Oh yeah, we just saw the photo. Come on, give it. 3 children. Okay. What I remember is we had a chap called Norman McIntosh doing a stint at South D for 3 months. He did at leadership request. He did a bit of a scope when he was up in Auckland at a Bible college and met this guy.
You need to bring your microphone up there.
I met this couple who were at the end of toward the end of their second year, third, yeah, okay, and recommended them to the church at South D, yeah, and said, look, I've met this couple, and he's the right man and they're the right people.
How did they go?
It was very cool. Well, actually, I've got some notes here, and the first note it says here, shy. So, yeah, it was a trademark at the beginning. Bruce was shy but passionate about what he was doing, and he just loved people, and yeah.
I remember that he got to do a lot of funerals, and he became quite expert at funerals. You will have seen a photo up there of Charles and Diana. They got married before us, but apart from a family wedding, we were the next wedding. And it was great excitement because he'd only done funerals. I'm not sure how he went. He never, I think we did have some pre-marriage counselling, but he never told me how you're supposed to sign the marriage certificate. And I haven't been married before. And so I signed it my married name. So legally we're living in sin properly. It's his fault.
You should talk to Bruce about that later this evening.
And Paul's got another story about a wedding when Bruce was a bit unsettled.
So I was one of the groomsmen at this meeting, and Bruce was officiating, and we had you have a practice the night before. So, but on the day, therefore, forearmed by the practice, my friend and I, who were both groomsmen, wrote H-E on one shoe and L-P on the other shoe. So when it came to that time when they were married and they knelt down to be prayed for, and it was a solemn moment, all these cameras started coming out, and everybody in the whole church was went into yeah, everybody there just went into raptures of laughter instead, and Bruce really had no idea what was going on. It was one of those moments, so yeah.
And then talking about shoes, nomads were in. Who remembers nomads?
Yes.
And he obviously never got paid very much, because I remember a collection went round to buy him a new pair because...
They spoke to you.
Yeah, they spoke to you. They were going like that. And then Paul actually remembers some of Bruce's great children's talks.
Yeah. I was going to talk about that. Okay. Just quickly, but no, there was a few, and so he'd come up with an example, and then you'd end up, and then he would speak to it, and it would all make sense. Quite a lot actually, and yeah. So.
And all I remember is I don't remember a single sermon, but I do. No reflection on you, Bruce, but I remember great discussion. We had some great people, Barbara Humphries, Martin Chambers, my parents, other people. There were a lot of people that were
here, actually.
Good
Yes.
with food, and they would invite the elders for meals. And so there was great consternation when Bruce preached on gluttony. And there was a bit of, you know, how you roast the pastor after church. Well, we used to. And that was, you know, it was like, really? So you haven't done that one again. Must have heard.
What have you guys really appreciated in what you've seen and been part of with Bruce and Jill over the years?
I wrote it on out there. Leadership, encouragement, friendship, just, yeah. Sorry, I should be looking at you, shouldn't I?
Great pastoral care. I remember leading the Sunday school and girls' brigade, and always there supporting pastoral. We even had a bit of marriage guidance. So we've been married 40 years, so thanks, it worked.
Yeah, and there was a special season in the life of South D that, and I'll just mention one thing here, but where we saw, and you know, prayer was a thing. Actually, Eleanor told me, this is my mother-in-law, who's also at South D, about all-night prayer meetings sometimes, you know, and things like this. But there was a move, just where God was moving in an amazing way, a move of the Holy Spirit, and we just saw lives changed and quite a large volume of people coming to Christ. But one of the things I remember, one of the statistics I remember that just really stood out to me was 13 over 70-year-olds who were baptised in the space of just a couple of years, and they were all people who had come from completely outside church to completely inside church, and it became quite a youth group event, really, hearing their stories of how God got their attention and how they ended up coming to faith, meeting Jesus, and their lives were changed, which was just an incredible time. So that was, and I always remember counting it up and going, far out, actually that's quite amazing. In later life, I look back on that, and it was a time that really shaped me personally as well. Yeah, but that's me. Sorry.
Well, we're gonna shuffle you guys off soon, so you've got
Yeah,
time
so
for
we
one
should.
more story, because we've got a lot of people coming up here. But
Kick us out.
we are. It's so good to hear these stories from the past. So
Oh yeah.
thank you very much.
No, and yes.
Thank you, Paul and Janet. Okay, we are moving forward in time a wee bit from 1983. So here's an opportunity for you out there in the crowd. If you were at Hanover Street Baptist Church in 1996, could you please stand up? How many of you do we still have? Okay, there are still a few. All right. So you can stay standing. We're going to add another group. If you were in Teachers College in March 2009, which is where we were meeting as a church at the time, just before we moved to Otago Boys High School, could you stand up? Who was at DCBC in 2009? Actually, only a few more people standing up at that point. Okay, there's a couple of people. Oh, okay, Bruce is standing. Oh, they're popping up everywhere as they remember. Okay, thank you, everyone. You can grab a seat.
Well, we now move to the time when we get to Hanover Street Baptist Church, and we'd like to invite Trevor and Helen to come on up here.
She
we were obviously quite a different church back then as to we are now. 3 different venues. Can you tell us a wee bit about what it was like back in 1996 when Bruce first arrived?
Sure. Well, you saw it. We left Hanover Street. Bruce came the Sunday after we left Hanover Street. So he never was with us in Hanover Street, Bruce. And we probably missed you, I suspect, but never mind. Yes, so the church then was in hired premises, I think for 19 years. A very different sort of experience running a church like that. A lot of hard work, setting up, packing down and so on. And you had to build your life in a different way when you didn't have a building, which was good for us. So yeah, sure, lots of changes.
And we were multi-congregational back then too, weren't we?
Yes, that's right.
So what was Bruce's role?
Well, back in about 1990, we began looking at other congregations. In 1991, the Chinese started first, and that was in Cantonese and Mandarin, their services. And then Lance Chrissy took over and led south. It was Eastern Dunedin. It used to be Sunshine Baptist, and he was the leader there. And as the congregations were growing like this, we decided to split the central congregation off and call it City Side. And by this stage, I was a bit overwhelmed with all the work. And we began looking for someone to lead the City Side congregation. Mm-hmm. And Lance Christie said, oh, this Bruce Elder chap. And I knew Bruce already, actually. I liked the guy, which is good to know, isn't it? Met him a few times at Pastors' Conference or Baptist Union, Hui's or whatever. And Bruce came on the team, and that was a really good moment for us. Because we finally got someone with skills. Helen, what about you?
I actually remember being both surprised and delighted that Bruce and Jill said yes to coming to DCBC because, you know, that's an unusual thing to do, to move across the city from one church to another, but hugely significant for us to have a couple who'd had ministry experience coming in. And I think that made a huge difference really to Trevor and I. They had 4 children at that stage when they made the move, and none of us would have predicted that our families would become much more closely linked as a result. But we're very glad that they did.
So how much change has there been since 1996, at least through to that era, well, coming into this building, those 3 different places? Oh,
just enormous change. Bruce was leading City Side. I was preaching there on Sundays, but I had no involvement in the weekly life and so on. Bruce built his own team and so on, took Helen onto the team, something that I was never allowed to do, the elders swore me to never bring my wife on the team, so Bruce did it.
Thank you, Bruce.
But the church went from multi-congregational, then we became one church again, one congregation. Well, the Chinese were still separate for a time. And in the process, we changed radically. We went huge change organisationally. And Bruce, of course, was a key part in that too. And that was very hard for Bruce because he was leading this congregation. He was me. He was sort of running around with the congregations coming in and leading that congregation. But Bruce showed great grace, I thought, personally, in the way you handled that. Because it was a very difficult thing. He was the most senior team member, and I tried to work with him as a partner, but that's still a very hard thing to do. And then we went into seeker services, 5:45. Some of you remember the 5:45 live services. Bruce had a lot of role in the Sunday night, the 5:45 services. And through that, our church changed. We started to get the middle group. That is the young families started to come into our church, particularly through that period. Because prior to that, the church had a lot of young people, young adults, but we didn't really have much else. We had some, but that was the era in which we really grew that part of the church, and the children's ministry boomed, all these things as a result. And then it takes off through youth and on it goes. So that was a huge change time for us. And then, of course, the buildings. Well, we're in it now, so that's enough said on that. But Bruce was a key person through all that time.
Yeah.
I'll talk more about him if you want me to.
Well, we'd love to hear more.
Okay.
Well, Hannah, you can start.
Okay, I will. So when I was thinking about Bruce and Jill, I think that there are a few things that really stand out for me. One is that the way you both serve people and you have a love for vulnerable people. Jill in her counselling work And I know that many at DCBC have been helped by that. And Bruce is a pastor. Bruce, you have such a big heart and a concern for others. When you arrived, you very quickly took on a significant pastoral load. You were doing weddings and those funerals, yes, lots of those. You were visiting the sick, you were looking out for the vulnerable. And I know that you and Pam spent many, many, many hours planning those services that became a really central part of your ministry and very, very important. But do you want to say something now and then I'll come back?
No, you
want me to keep going? Oh, okay, I'm on a roll. Okay. So I also know about Bruce that you are the Lord's man, and it shines out in all you do. You really cared about the pastoral leadership team. One of the very frequent questions we heard was, how are you really?
I've heard that question
you
quite
heard that
a lot.
one?
Yeah, we would all groan when we heard the really bit.
Yeah, I know. But we actually knew that he really wanted to know.
Yeah.
And that's very significant. You're a loyal leader and trustworthy. And I saw that you were always trying to lighten the load for those around you, and particularly for Trevor and I. I'm so grateful for that. You would put up your hand to take on responsibility, whether it be, the shift over Christmas and New Year, doing those services, just whatever. Bruce would do whatever. And that was amazing. And Bruce, I just really think that your big laugh is very endearing. And we heard it a lot, which was great. And Bruce and Jill, of course, you opened your home and offered hospitality, particularly to the team, on numerous occasions. And that was always, very much appreciated. So I'm very grateful to the Lord that he sent the two of you to DCBC.
Yeah, I'd add to that. Bruce, your love for the Lord is the thing that I think first attracted me to you. We became friends, obviously, before you came to DCBC. But what I liked about you was you were someone who obviously wanted to get to know the Lord better, and you listened to him, and that was just so admirable. And I think that's a quality you carried with you through ministry in this church, very significant. And in those times when the church went through a lot of change, sometimes I think you had to bear some of the worst part of that. But I want to pay tribute to you, the fact that you did do so. I thought at one stage, how can we possibly keep this team together? I'm thinking of 1999, that year, when we all started telling each other 100% truth, and we began to look at our roles and realising we all had to realign because everyone was misaligned in the team. And yet we had to, because the church needed to be more fruitful. And I remember thinking through that time, we're not going to keep all these people. Well, we did. And at the end, we became out friends. And we trusted each other. And we had all changed our roles in some way. And I think for you, I take my hat off to you because I know how hard that was and how well you did. But that is a mark of who you are. And that's what made you, from my perspective, a person I could trust and depend on. You were loyal. And for me in leadership position, that was massive. And then increasingly we shared that leadership. And that was a real joy too. Because the team builds around. A church succeeds or does well, not because of one person. It does it because a team of people are united in harmony. They're working together with the same vision. And you were a key part of how that actually happened for us, because it did happen for us. And we had a whole lot of years there when there was stability and peace in the life of the church and harmony. And that goes back to a large measure to your contribution, which I'm very, very grateful for. I mean, obviously seeing this from my position, you see, and that's where you can hear from me. But I valued that enormously. And I think another thing, that you're a good shepherd of the sheep. I mean, Jesus called his people sheep. And in many ways, you guys are sheep.
It's not very complimentary.
But there's a lot of truth in this as you watch it happen. Because people don't always know what really is going to make them grow, and they don't know what's going to hinder their growth. And that's quite obvious. Therefore, the Lord appointed shepherds, which is what the word pastor, it just means, a shepherd. And Bruce, the qualities needed in the shepherd, the qualities that you have precisely. And that's what really blessed our life as a church, hugely. And so I'm very grateful to actually having you there and for the friendship we shared and those years together. And I think this church is as much you as me or anyone else what happened in those years. And that's very important to know. Yet it's very hard to single out any one thing. But I love the way you made bloopers.
We'll see some of them soon. Don't worry.
Okay, we better not steal your thunder.
I won't say any more, but that
Yeah.
was wonderful. So that's me for Bruce, and I can say a lot more.
I can ask you to say one more thing
Yeah.
about this, because you talked about changing roles, and I understand that Bruce was in charge of worship at one point. He was the worship leader guy, and he might have even learned to play the flute. Is that right, Bruce?
I'm not going to comment on that. We're here to say good things.
Well, thank you, you guys. It's
You're
so good to
welcome.
hear the stories from the past.
Thank you, Trevor and Helen. I think I know what is coming next.
This is one of the earlier staff retreats. Tim Cooper was on this one as well. I'm not sure why he wasn't in this photo, but one of the things we would always do is play mini golf. You know what this is about, Mike?
Yes, this particular hole does bring back some bad memories.
What's going on here?
I really like that maroon top with the stars. I wore that because I thought it might give me success at mini golf. If you can see this sort of tunnel on one side of the picture, you've got to hit the ball up through that tunnel. I know we're here making fun of Bruce, but I have to confess I had a lot of trouble getting the ball into this tunnel and out the other side. A lot of trouble.
We had great fun on these mini golf tournaments, and on one particular year, Mike Utley, who was very competitive, as is Bruce, by the way, they had this big rivalry about who would win, and it got to the point where, because Mike had beaten Bruce by one shot, so he would, from the rest of the retreat, he just called him by his number. So 53, how's it going from 52?
So actually, if you missed that, at that point in time, there were 3 mics on the church leadership team. That actually happened a second time in our history, so we have a thing about mics. I also have to confess, this particular day in the maroon top with the stars on the sleeves, I got a bit annoyed with the rest of the team because I believe that they added up my score incorrectly and added in 1 extra shot.
Which would have taken him from last to last.
It's still important to be precise though, Mike. Okay, I need to let that go. I'd like to invite our next guests up onto the stage. And we've got 3 people for the first time this evening. So could we please have Andre, Kim and Mr. James Irwin to come up and grab a seat across both couches. And as they're coming up, we have a video from Charlie and May. They are 2 of our long-standing mission partners serving in Malaysia.
Hi, I'm Charlie from Malaysia, and today I want to honor Pastor Bruce. We still choose to call him Pastor Bruce because he is really a pastor to us. He has been there for us. He cares for us like a shepherd caring for the sheep. He's one person whom both May and I can always confide in. We have chosen in the last more than 30 years to return to New Zealand, and we've always chosen to go back to DCBC just to spend that time with him and Jill.
Pastor Bruce is someone so special to us, and he has touched our lives so deeply and personally. Both Charlie and I have been so blessed by his friendship, pastoral care, and along with Jill, Pastor Bruce is not just a pastor and friend, but they have become family to us.
He's a man of prayer, and he has taught me how to rest in God and how to honor and value the Sabbath rest. I have learned from him what it means to be quiet and just to be in the presence of God. He's a man who really walks in the presence of God and daily seeks God.
Pastor Bruce has spent countless hours with us, patiently listening and to our stories and lifting us up in prayer. His love, his warmth, gentleness, and humility are qualities that really inspire and encourage both Charlie and I. And we are so thankful to Pastor Bruce for his kindness and unwavering support. When Charlie and I visit New Zealand, we always look forward to their warm hospitality. And Yeah, we really enjoy being in their house, and we feel so at home. And of course, no visit is complete without a meal of fish and chips, a tradition that we really hold dearly too.
I want to honor you, Pastor Bruce, for the love and the care that you've showered upon us. In many ways, both May and I are where we are because of what you have sown into our lives. We will always be grateful to God for blessing us with the fellowship and friendship you have rendered to us.
Pastor Bruce, we love you, and may you have a richly blessed and fulfilling retirement. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Charlie and May. So, Andre, Kim, and James. I think we'll start with you, James. We'll start down the far end. Just a short question to begin with. How long have you served with or alongside Bruce and Jill?
It was September 1996, just a few weeks after Bruce came to DCBC. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, he's laid down a big challenge straight off.
Do you want to tell me the circumstances? He picked me up from work. I was working at the university. We drove up to the Thomas Broken lookout, looking over the city, and I thought as I talked to this man, yes, I can gel with him. And Trevor had asked me to meet with him and let him know some of the needs of the congregation as I saw them, and I thought, yes, this is going to work. Yeah.
I think that was code for Trevor asked James to scout Bruce out a little bit. If you haven't been in church leadership, just reading between the lines there for you. Okay, 1996, what about you, Kim?
Well, I was at the commissioning, and I remember being in the crowd, and Bruce was up on stage, and I don't know who was with him from South Dunedin, but was it Robert? But yeah, but I remember Robin being a little bit sad that we were actually getting Bruce, and Robert, I'm sorry, Robert. But I remember thinking, we are so lucky to get him, and Bruce, he was even looking a little bit, you know how he looks when he senses that God is doing something. You were looking like that, Bruce. And I remember thinking you'd be working with Trevor in such a good way. So I remember being, really happy about that. And then my friend leaned over and said to me, "He's too good looking to be a pastor."
Wow.
So that was my first memory.
I'm not sure how to respond to that one. We'll move on. Move on, Mike. On to you, Andre. How long have you served with or alongside?
Right from the very beginning that Bruce arrived, and I'm just aware that he has been part of my commitment as an elder in the church here ever since then. And you've heard the amazing things about Bruce, and we'll comment as well, a few more in a minute, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, well, you can hold on to that microphone, Andre. We'll start back down this end. So for each of you, what have you appreciated most about Bruce's leadership or approach to leading?
For me, it's been hard to say what is most, because there is so many things. And what I thought I'd do, I know others are going to speak as well along these lines, that I wanted to mention 5 things in relation to Bruce for me. The first thing, and it's become already very apparent, Bruce is a man of many phases. There's been community, urging us to be a community. There's the prayer initiatives that Bruce has brought to us. There's mission, Cambodia, Malaysia. So many ways in which Bruce has urged us to be...
Hold on a second, Andre. Is that mic died out? I'll pass you this one.
No, just hold it.
Oh, is it? Hold it. Hold it like this.
I'm waving it, am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
That way.
Yeah, that's good, like an ice cream.
Okay.
Don't actually eat it. Pretend it's an ice cream.
I won't. And then there's been the phase of local mission and reaching our community. There's been the period of we've got to make teams. And there's so many phases of Bruce's way of expressing things which have just become a reflection of the life of the church. And it's wonderful. But there was one, and that's COVID. That was a phase that we went through. And Bruce was at the midst of that. And Bruce really helped us through that period. And we've done very well as a church, as you know. But it was very hard for Bruce. And it was a real challenge. And I just want to honour Bruce to have stuck it at COVID and all that it meant for you personally. And that God has really been very generous in helping you through that and being the person you are now. The second man is a man from Gore. It's an expression that's been used quite often in jest, but actually Bruce is from Gore. He's from Otago. He's from Southland, Otago. And I just want to point about something that's just happened very recently that is an expression of Bruce's commitment to Central Otago. And that is the network, the Baptist network that's been set up there. And Bruce has been very instrumental in that and continues to be so. And thank you, Bruce, for doing that and taking us there. And I don't know if you know it, but actually there's only one church plant, Baptist church plant in New Zealand, and that's in Central, and that's the Central Baptist Network. Thank you, Bruce. The third man I want to recognise is a man with a real heart for the needy. That's Bruce, his passion for the poor and the needy. And I just want to share one part of that because you've seen it in many different ways. The ways I've seen it is his role at Servants Health Centre. You may not be aware of it, but Bruce has been one of our board members for 14 years. In fact, this last week, I had to give a talk at a farewell for Bruce after 14 years on the board. And what was his role? He's not into health, really. He's not very medical, and he gets bored with it. And he used to get bored with it at board meetings. But the task that Bruce had, and he did so well for us, was to keep the focus on Jesus. Because when you have a clinic like Servants Health Centre, it's very easy to get so involved with the medicine, with the money, with the health department and so on. But when there were questions around those things, it was always Bruce who actually reminded us of our focus, and it's a focus that's continued. And Bruce, we're really indebted to you for that. The fourth thing is Bruce as a man of passion. Bruce is a man of passion. And I don't know if you recognise it, but I think he's become more and more a man of passion. Sometimes his passion is measured in volume, but it's there because he's a servant of Jesus. And his passion is for him to learn to serve Jesus better, but especially for us to be serving Jesus better. So thank you for that passion, Bruce, and that commitment to following Jesus. And the last thing is, Bruce, for me, is a man of enduring friendship. For me personally, ever since that time that we started working together, Bruce has been a friend. Now, Bruce and I don't always see things the same, but we could always talk about it. And I've spent so many hours with Bruce. Hundreds, literally hundreds of elders meetings and servants board meetings as well. I've even spent a few days in a motel with Bruce at a national hui. So I got to know Bruce, and Bruce served me well in the friendship that is such an enduring thing and will, I'm sure, endure beyond today.
Thank you, Andre.
Thank you, Andre. On to you, Kim.
Well, I'd like to echo all of that. I just wanted to say a couple of things, Bruce. What I've really, really appreciated about you, all those years of ministry when I felt like I was battling by myself, you were always coming in, checking in on me. Is everything going okay? How can I pray for you? Where do you see God leading? And I really appreciated that, just those check-ins. When we did our planning sessions, you got us to prime the pump so that we'd be creative in our service planning, always very God-focused. Appreciated that. You have been a very compassionate role model for me in ministry. That's been just a real joy to see you, how you interact with other people, warts and all. That's been amazing. But also one of the most stunning things is the way that you are so humble, and that when you track along with other Christian leaders for a long time, none of us are perfect, and being able to see how gracious you are with other people's inconsistencies or with their faults or with their mistakes, and how humble you are with your own as well. That's been real priceless for me to see how to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And now down to James, who I know has something to share about both Bruce and Jill. So over to you, James.
Yes, many of you may not be aware that Jill is a professional counsellor. Back in 2004, she and Bruce together were aware there were a number of guys in our church who were struggling with mental health issues. And in that context, they approached me together with Shane Vincent to consider setting up some kind of a group to offer primarily friendship and support to these people. We had a big deliberation what to call it. We finally decided to call it the Way Up group, and that group is still going. Thanks very much to Bruce and Jill. For the first couple of years, either both of them or one of them would meet with our leadership team to supervise us, to ask us some tough questions and to guide us in the right way, and that was really wonderful. To me, that's over the last 20 years have led to the most fulfilling time in my life, I'd say, through that ministry. So I'm very grateful to both of you for that. Along with that, Bruce has been available when I've had a crisis situation to deal with, which hasn't been very often, but sometimes that's been necessary, and I've had to call him at odd times. He's always been there to give the support I need. I've appreciated too, Bruce, your way you've been prepared to speak a direct word to me when you sense I'm wanting to head off in a direction which is not going to be helpful. You've held me accountable. You've helped me to establish boundaries, and that's been incredibly valuable. And as has been said by others, I really appreciate that Bruce is a man who listens to God and encourages others to do so too. As most of you know, I'm retired now, and I sometimes think, well, the time I spend being still and quiet, is that really something I should be doing in my retirement time? Shouldn't I be getting out and doing things? But Bruce has encouraged me to be still and quiet, and sometimes journaling, sometimes just meditating on the Word, or just being still, and that has been invaluable. So I want to thank you, Bruce, for that.
Thank you, James. Just quickly before you three hop down, you've got a little story about Bruce and running, James. I think you could briefly tell us that one.
About Bruce and running?
Bruce and running? Bruce inspiring someone else to run?
You might have to
Well, I've set myself up there. That's all right. I don't want to tell the story. Don't worry about it, James.
I'm trying to rack my brains.
It's all right. I didn't know about the story until you emailed me.
Mike, could I just say something about Jill? I thought it was just about Bruce, but I'd really just like to mention something about Jill, because I just really want to honour you, Jill, because you have been just an amazing role model to me personally as a mother. You have been able to juggle ministry and raising a family. You've done that so graciously. You've taught me personally about when I was busy in ministry about making sure that I look after my own backyard first, and about the process of forgiveness. And you've just got the most lovely laugh. And I just want to honour you for just being an amazing role model for women in our congregation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kim, Andre and James. You guys can head down. I'll see if I can find that story at one point.
Okay. Look, one of the things we used to do on staff retreats, in our staff time, was at the end of the year celebrate a whole bunch of awards. And one of the awards was the blooper of the year. Now, it's fair to say that everyone on the team, I think, has won the Blooper of the Year award several times, and Bruce, of course, has won it several times. In one particular year, there was a memorable blooper, and we're going to tell a few of these tonight, but this is one that came to mind. He was dedicating a child of Sharon and Andy Leach, and as he was up here, in the heat of the moment, he somehow managed to mix the names up, so it was Aaron and Shandy. And the trouble was that as he corrected himself, it got into his head and he could not stop repeating Aaron and Shandy. So it was a great moment, Bruce. We appreciate these moments you give us through the years. Can we flick back to the main screen you got? There's a tribute from our mission partners over in PNG, Sharon and Andrew.
Thanks, Bruce, for your ministry to us. And it's about 25 years or more. I remember when we had London Street Home Group and we met as mentoring young small group leaders, and you would meet with us, hear how we're going with God and encourage us. That was a great memory of mine, and one of the big reasons I came back to DCBC to be sent by DCBC, and then once again in 2007, 8 or something, when I explained God's call to mission. You treated it as an answer to prayer that you've been praying for a number of missionaries to be sent out from DCBC, and we proceeded to meet every month or so as DCBC and I was getting prepared to this for this new venture together. Then I remember coming back as a rather burnt out person in the middle of working in Runganui Hospital. And when I came back, I'm not sure what I expected, but what I found was you encouraging me with the love of God. And that was a theme you kept going on. And I think it's finally sinking in that that's who God is. And He's full of love for us, His children.
Yes, so thank you, Bruce, and that's obviously part of the, I've inherited much part of that story by marrying Sharon, so thank you for all that input into her life in these earlier times as well as more recent times.
There you go, Mike. That's life on the mission field. The work of fixing the planes cannot stop from making the video.
Interesting sound quality. Bruce, one of the verses that you have often shared from, and it's like they're life verses for you, and they must be your life verses, I imagine. Luke 4, 18 to 19, the Spirit of the Lord is on me, because He has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour. And you seem to have taken on Jesus' words and tried to enact them in so many ways. And with these verses, another set that you have often preached from is Luke 10, verse 2 and 3, where Jesus says, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers. Go, or as you say, be booted out, because I am booting you out, I am sending you. We really appreciate that work, and we know that you and Jill both went on an internship to Cambodia, where you were billeted out in the slums of Cambodia. And from there, met Pastor Vantar and his wife Sering, and also you've, in subsequent times, I think, you've met Kevin and Lechner, who work in Mango Tree School, and that work that partnership with that work began in this time. So we've got the person who's in charge of our international missions area, Mel McNatty, leading a short-term mission trip over there right now, and this is her tribute. With some slides from back in the first trip to Cambodia. Sorry, let me just run this.
Hi, Bruce and Jill. I'm with the team in Cambodia this weekend and would have loved to have been at your farewell weekend, but I know that you'll be equally proud of me in leading the team in our last weekend in Phnom Penh. It's been an amazing ride over the many years, nearly 2 decades, and I thank you for the investment that you've made into my life, that you've had faith and believed in me at times when I haven't. You've invited me into your family to be part of varying events over the years. I just want to thank you for your heart and your passion for people and for people that don't have a lot. I particularly think of your time in South Dunedin, but also your heart for the poor and your heart for the poor in other countries. And I want to thank you today for investing in me. We've grown together in terms of local and international mission over the years, and it hasn't been an easy ride at times, but one of the things that will stick with me is the fact that I've grown my heart. I want to thank you for teaching me about the Father Heart of God. Bruce, we've been on many mission trips. We've been on local mission trips. I remember the time in Gore, which was really profound for you and profound for others as we prayed and sought the Holy Spirit's leading. The thing I remember really fondly is you not dressing up, but you being a donkey on the ground coming into the Gore Baptist Church. Thank you for your pastoral hearts and care of me. I want to wish you all the best in the next season of your lives. It's going to be an exciting journey for you, and we'll watch on with great interest. And I know that you'll be my greatest prayer supporter in the background moving forward. Prayer Paten Por.
Mr. Bruce, greeting from Cambodia, and thank you so much for your heart for Cambodia.
Yeah, Bruce, I've known you quite a while now, since the first days of me landing here in Cambodia. So I just want to say how much we appreciate all your support, all your words, all your encouragement in our ministry, both personally and with DCBC Church. We know I'm not going to say the dirty R word, but I am going to say that you have a great opportunity now to see what God has in store for you for the next season, and we're excited to wait with you. So,
Thank you to those in Cambodia. And if you missed that was only filmed there a couple of days ago. Our next guest is someone that Bruce may not have expected. So, Heather Stanley, I believe you are out there somewhere. Could you come on up and grab a seat? As Heather is coming up, we have another blooper to share with you. A group of us were here filming a service, the last service before we went into a lockdown, and Bruce may have momentarily forgotten where the camera was pointing and where we were and were not meant to be during the musical worship. Can you play that? Thank you, Mike. Great fast exit. Welcome, Heather.
Hello. Many of you will, if you've been around for quite some time, back in the early 2000s, remember Greg and Heather, and that you accompanied Bruce on one of the first local mission trips.
Yes, I did. Before we start, I just want to assure Bruce I'm not going to tell the story you're worried about.
Oh, come on.
I want you to relax. It's okay.
I know what story you're talking about.
But yes, I did. I went, my first one was the Gore trip. So I didn't go on the official first one, but that was my first one.
So what year are we talking about now?
2008, 2009. I never got an official, around that time.
Right. And you went on a number of these.
Yes, I did. I ended up going on maybe 4. Yeah. But my first one was, I tried to get out at Balclutha and organise someone to pick me up because I really didn't want to do it. I did want to do it, but I also really didn't. And because I was in tears by the time I got there because I just didn't think I could be that person that I thought you needed to be able to do that. So,
so what were they like? Like, what was making you feel anxious like this?
Well, I thought I'm not an extrovert.
Right.
And Bruce said when we got there that just you, just as you are, you can do this as you. And that's why I went back for the next one, because it turned out to be true. You can serve your community and love people authentically in a genuine way without having to put on a show and a fuss.
When I was chatting with you and Greg on the phone the other day, you were saying how the trips would start with not really anything particularly planned.
Yeah, it was insane. The only plan, the only sure thing that Bruce scheduled was prayer.
Right.
And so, so that's great, but at that time I was like, what's going to happen though? Like, what do you want me to do? Where's the schedule? What happens next? That wasn't like that. And for someone like me, that felt real loose. Like anything could happen. And that's actually how it was. Anything could happen, but they were good things.
And then as the week went on, or the time you were on the trip went on, the schedule started to fill up though.
It did.
And how did that occur? What are some of the stories or situations?
Well, we always started each day with prayer that we would meet the people God would like us to meet.
Yep.
And we always did. And they always had situations that we could love them in. And we did have a kind of a community survey that we would do, which was door knocking, which is also insane, but I did it. But it was always out of love and always safe. And so people did share and did open up and did ask for help if they needed it.
It must have been quite formative for you guys, 4 years being part of these sort of trips and growing in confidence and so on.
Yeah, I think it was foundational for how we live now and how we interact with our community and the schools that our kids go to, and even how we interact with when we look over the neighbour's fence and there's a severed deer head on the on the lawn, and we embrace who they are.
Yeah. Wow, you got interesting neighbours.
We really do.
What sort of confidence did you gain from on the first trip? You're talking about you're in tears because you were so worried about what was going to happen. But 4 years later?
I think the confidence came in that Bruce echoes Jesus in that it's good to be you. It doesn't mean you won't grow and change and be challenged and like this isn't me, but I can and I do it. And I guess I just got experience after experience of knowing how to be Heather and how to love God and how to do that truly as me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you've got a family 40th that you've stepped out of for tonight, so thanks very much for stepping in to share.
Just one more thing, because my kids don't know who you are, which sucks, but my son said, who is this guy? And just Greg and I both like, he's the guy that loves God, and he taught us how to do it too. So, thank you.
Thanks so much, Heather.
Thank you, Heather. Can I just say blessings upon Balclutha? I don't think that was personal from Heather. And thank you for stepping out of the 40th. All right, you've all been sitting for a while. I think it's time for you to be like Pastor Bruce and stand up and get a bit more active. So can everyone stand? Stand up. So those of you who have been around Bruce for a while will know that there are certain Bruceisms. In fact, this first one, if you type Bruce Elder, DCBC, into Google, you will get several images of him doing what, Mike? That's right. So So we'd like all of you to participate in the Bruceism. So can you... There's the first one.
The second one is that whenever Bruce preaches, he rolls his sleeves up. Okay, so I haven't got any long sleeves on today, but you've got to roll your sleeves up.
Another one that Bruce does, you don't always see this one publicly, but we definitely see it around the office and at different times. We've heard people say how prayerful Bruce is. He likes to physically show that as well. So he will often get passionate and start wandering around with his hands like this. So if you want to have a go doing that one. What else have we got, Mike?
Well, this one occurs sitting down, but you can just stay standing for a moment, and I'll just do it standing up. But whenever Bruce is finishing a meeting, because he's all excited and passionate, he has to go before he leaves. So you must do that.
We have seen and heard that at the end of a lot of prayer meetings. Another one that Bruce does, and actually I can sit down, is that Bruce will often rub his legs with both hands when he's getting really passionate about something, whether he's talking about it or someone else is talking about it. So here's one for you.
And this one I can relate to, and my family hassle me about this too, but when Bruce is preaching, it's... and then it's off again, and then it's on again, okay? If you haven't got glasses, you can't really do this, but if you have, you can do that one as well.
Grab a seat, everyone. Oh, sorry, Mike, did I jump in with that too soon?
No,
sorry,
no.
we have one more video.
Aaron and Connie are our mission partners in the US.
Aaron and I wanted to come on and say thanks so much to Bruce and to Jill for the time that you've put into DCBC over many, many years. For us, we've always felt very supported by you guys and loved through our mission work that we've been doing. And also, it's been amazing the way that you've supported our children and just always showed an interest in what they're doing and how they're doing. So we really appreciate that. And Jill, just so you know, the recipe that you made for us of dal is on our normal rotation, and my whole family loves it.
Bruce, what a powerful force for missions you've been, the way that you have put that at the forefront of just what DCBC is about, and the way you've engaged others to work with you in that. Just feel, as Connie said, super supported by you. And I'll never forget opening a Bible in a church in South Dunedin, and inside it said presented, and it was a young person's name by Bruce Elder. I just realized that that was 15 years ago. And just the many generations that you have been investing in the lives of people, and particularly in missions. And so big shoes to fill, but we're just super thankful for the legacy that you guys have left at DCBC.
Thank you to Aaron and Connie. Look, just quickly, I have found this running story, in case any of you were wondering what I was doing on my phone. So this was from James Irwin to me a few years ago. So sorry, a few days ago. Sorry for stitching you up, James, but this is what he said. Also, Ron Underwood shared with me how he was blessed when Bruce blessed his new house when he first moved to Dunedin. Bruce also prayed that Ron would be blessed like Caleb at the age of 85. You'll be surprised what comes next, but you'll really like this. This motivated Ron to take up jogging again after not doing so for 20 years. And now Ron runs half marathons. So there you go, Bruce. That's one of the many ways that you have a positive influence on people. Gabe, I keep looking out here because it's hard to pick out faces, but Gabe, I know you're here somewhere. Oh, someone has pointed. Thank you, Paul. Do you want to come up and grab a seat, Gabe? As Gabe is coming up, I just want to tell you a little bit about what Bruce does in terms of his connections with other local Dunedin pastors and various gatherings. So in 2006 and 7, Bruce restarted the gathering of local Dunedin pastors, and the aim of this was for each person to pray for the other pastors and to pray for the city of Dunedin, and of course to connect with each other, encourage and support each other. And out of this group was initiated the first ever combined town hall service, and he led in this context for another decade. So with that in mind, we actually have Gabe up here. Now, if you do not know Gabe, he is the senior pastor at one of our local churches, Elam. Gabe, you've got some things you'd like to share about Bruce, so I'll hand over to you.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here with you all, and great to speak a few words of Bruce that I've only really known for 3 years, and most of you will think of me as a newbie, particularly with the great history that's reflected here. But I'm married to a great-granddaughter of someone born in Otago, so I believe that I've got roots here somehow.
Okay, you're in, Gabe. Here you go.
No, I think one of the things as you come into the city as a new arrival, and when you get welcomed into the CDC, which is the Combined Dunedin Churches group, you experience a sense of unity, you experience a sense of pastors who come together with a real heart to reach Otapoti Dunedin, and also a group that have come together and come through a whole lot of adversity and different challenges together. And Bruce, as you heard from Mike, is really significant in not just restarting that a couple of decades ago, but making it is what it is today. And so it's a huge thanks to Bruce for pushing me into now leading that group. Thank you for that blessing. But I would go so far as to say that Bruce is really a statesman in regards to pastors and the way they think of him in this city. He's really such a blessing to the city and to the pastors that serve here. As you heard, Resurrection Service is one of those key ones, and Richard Dawson just had to skip out because it's Sunday tomorrow, but him and others have been so instrumental in making sure that the gospel of Jesus Christ is lifted up in this city. And in addition to that and many other events, one of the things that I got to know Bruce around was this recent event, Open Heaven. Now, me and a couple of other of the Pentecostal pastors were in a meeting, and we thought, hey, we really want to start something in prayer, and we knew that we had to talk to Bruce about this, given his legacy in prayer. And so he came along to this meeting, and he was more excited about the prayer meeting than we were. And he gave it this full endorsement. You need to go ahead. We need a big prayer meeting in the city. Now, I don't know if you know this, but you have a mega church pastor as a pastor. He is the only one, as he got up on the platform, to get the biggest cheer. I don't know if Mike Bagg had prepped the young adults to get cheering, but we were all there to pray, and Bruce was there to get cheered. But I think, in terms of the legacy of faithfulness and prayer, Bruce is unparalleled in the city and amongst the pastors, and it's been a huge blessing to get to know him. He's a pastor to you, but he's also a pastor to us. He's a brilliant encourager, as many of you know, and this is where I've really had the opportunity recently, and I'm so blessed that Bruce has made room for me in his busy schedule to meet one-on-one. And as you've had that question, how are you really? I have that question, how are you really? And it's things like encouraging each other during the COVID times. I took over Elim 3 months before we entered the traffic light system, and so it's a real blessing to have someone like Bruce just encouraging me through that journey. And so just thinking also about the gift that I'm going to take from Bruce, and also look forward to continuing to enjoy, really. I've been in ministry 20 years, but 3 years a senior now. And to sit with someone who's got 42 years of senior leadership, and to see him so hungry for God, and so humble in his heart to grow in his knowledge of the Lord, that really is the right perspective for me to approach any ministry, and I'm sure he's left that deposit with you. It's a significant change for you as a church as you say goodbye to Bruce as your leader, but I'm going to take full advantage as one of those in the city of his increasing freedom to spend time with you. So thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you so much, Jill.
Thank you, Gabe.
Thank you, Gabe. You can grab a seat. Thank you. Well, Bruce, I'm amazed. I heard him say that you were more passionate and excited even than a group of Pentecostal pastors. So there you go. Well done. Bruce has also built a lot of connections with pastors outside of Dunedin. You've already heard that mentioned, pastors in the local area. So here is a message from Brent Davey, who is the senior pastor at Gore Baptist, and he could not be here, so he has emailed this to us. It says, "Hi, Bruce and Jill. Well done." There is a bit more than that. When I think of 42 years in pastoral leadership, including 28 years at DCBC, I am astounded. You would have seen and overseen numbers of changes in that time, had joys and celebrations, and no doubt have picked up some battle scars along the way. You have given your lives to loving Jesus and loving people, and have done that with grace and humility. And so, rightly so, today you are honoured. Bruce, I've only had the privilege of knowing you a few years, but in that time I have enjoyed your company and have been both challenged and encouraged by the way you go about following Jesus, and particularly what that looks like in a leadership role. However, I do recognise no one is perfect, And so supporting Manchester United is the glaringly dark spot on your character. And he's put in an exclamation mark to make that really clear. Transformation does take time. We will be praying for you. And the verse that comes to mind for me as you retire from your role at DCBC is this. 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 3. We remember before our God and Father your work produced by your faith, your labour prompted by love, and your endurance inspired by hope in our Lord Jesus Christ. May you continue to know and experience the blessings and love of your Heavenly Father. Thank you, Brent. Right, we've finally reached the part of the evening where Bruce and Jill are going to join us up on stage. So Bruce and Jill, could you please come up? And also Mr. Lance Elder, could you come up with them as well? We've invited Lance up because we thought we'd better have a member of the whānau up here to share. He's got notes. I'm impressed with that, Lance. So Bruce and Jill, you better take centre stage here, and Lance, you can jump on the couch on the right.
Can I start with the first question, Mike?
Oh, you can, Mike.
Bruce, how are you? Really?
That is a very difficult question to answer tonight.
Well, we'll let you off the hook because I've got you. I want you to. Can I put this slide up, please? Can you tell us what this is? What's going on there, Bruce?
This happened at Christmas time, a service just before Christmas time. I was very much wanting to see the Spirit of God set the place on fire in DC. And so in my thinking, you know what I mean. So the Sunday before, I think it was Christmas Day. Actually, I think it was Christmas. Oh, it was Christmas Day. Yeah, and so we decided we would get a Christmas cake, and we get all the kids to bring a candle forward and light it somewhere else, and then put it on the cake, and we'd sing Happy Birthday to Jesus. But what happened when you put a lot of candles on a cake? The flame all went into one, and it burnt off all around. There was a paper thing around the cake. It burnt that to smithereens. You know what I mean? And all the candles disintegrated into the cake, and wax on top of the cake. I was perfectly calm. Perfectly calm. There was a fire hose just at the front. We could have used. Fortunately, the smoke alarms didn't go off and everything like that. And that whole cake was eaten. The whole cake was eaten, wax and everything.
Well, I love what was written on the back of that photo when I found it.
Oh, that's great.
This is a legendary event in the life of the church. I was not there, but I've heard the story from a few people enough times to make me feel like I was actually there and got to see it through their eyes. So a question for you to start off with, Lance. What was it like growing up with your parents so heavily involved in pastoral ministry?
Well, first of all, it's 30-odd years ago, which seems like a long time, but you can get over a lot of trauma in 30 years, that's for sure. So I mean, the normal stuff, being a PK. How many people here are pastors' kids? There must be a few, actually. Yeah, there's a few around. So there's a few things. There's a few drawbacks, I've got to say, like every single Sunday, being there on time, going home late, doing every single event that you can possibly imagine. So there's all of those things that you get used to, sort of. As you get older, though, and you're still attending the same church, you don't have to do it. I discovered a few years ago, so I haven't been to a lot of things. But
you should come to more things, I think, Lance.
Yeah, that was the thing. But actually, I thought I'd reflect back because there's a side of it that you don't get to see from the others. There is a difficult side. You get to see some of the other side of being a pastor sometimes as well, which is quite tough in lots of regards. But what I probably appreciate most about pastoral family well, I've got 3 tiers actually of thoughts here. But one of them is really that supportive environment that you guys provided at home. We always felt safe. Well, I think we felt safe, didn't we, at home? You know, maybe not us brothers together, but that's a separate issue.
Yeah, not safe from each other.
Yeah. Well, 80s and 90s kids were a little different, and there were a little less boundaries, I think, you'd get to. But I really appreciated the way that you parented in lots of ways. I think, Mum, you read some liberal parenting book where you decided to give us free rein and make us take self-responsibility at a young age. But that really worked for me, and we really value that. Although Reuben didn't take that the same way, I think. And I only say that, Reuben, because as I stood up here, you were worried about I'd say something. So there you go. But most of all, I think the thing that on that side that I really appreciate is the fact that you modelled, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that meant to me. You both modelled what it is to love God, love Jesus, and what you did. But you put absolutely no pressure on us, no pressure to commit to church, no pressure to be Christians. You just modelled it. You would answer questions, etc. And I really appreciate that. And it seemed to work. You've got all your kids and grandchildren coming to churches, which is really cool. The other thing that I think around that side is I really appreciate it is you love people, and Mum loves people. Motion was safe in our house. You're able to express your emotion, you're able to be emotional, and you taught us to deal with emotion and not be afraid of emotion. And I really appreciate that, and that's more, particular Mum's side along those lines. For me, a couple of significant things. Am I allowed to just keep going for a bit, Mike?
I was about to say, you just keep going.
You did put in the questions. You gave me one question and then you said, say whatever you like.
We didn't give you a time limit.
Did I say?
You didn't know time limit? You said say whatever I like. Mike.
You'll see the frowns on the faces. That's the time limit. But keep going.
Wow. Yeah, that's it. So for me, the things that were significant in my Christian life in those younger years, I think, well, first of all, some of the words of God you've spoken to, particularly around facing fear and and some of the tough things. But really, there are 2 things. Is one time when we're going to the Marlborough Sounds. We used to holiday in the Marlborough Sounds. I think Reuben and I were being a little bit competitive about something, which is not unusual. And you sort of snapped and it got to a point where you sort of snapped and said that you pointed out to us that we come from a privileged background and you're born into that scenario, and that's not really fair. That's triggered a whole series of things that I worked through with you and stuff around accepting, because at that time I was probably a little bit more seeing the world as black and white and right and wrong kind of scenario. But that triggered onto me to understand something about the grace of God, that God died for me, but also that He died for us, and to see that perspective of looking at everybody with the empathy that we aren't worthy to be in Christ. And that changed my entire life. Although admittedly it was to look at the world, accepting that we are saved through Jesus, and have that same empathy when we first approach everyone. So that was really significant to me. Another one was, you've talked about the prayer thing along those lines. Well, there was one Sunday in South Dunedin where you hadn't got a sermon, I think. I don't know if you remember that, but you came to the church and you said you couldn't remember a sermon. You couldn't have a sermon there. So we just sort of had this extended worship prayer time. And it was amazing. So this, I don't think it's textbook for a pastor to have that, by the way. Good thing they didn't know that when you had here. They didn't ask you about that Sunday, did they? The Sunday that you prepared nothing.
It's good to know that's a viable option. Thank you, Lance. We'll file that away, Mike.
Yep. But it was a transforming experience to me, because we saw the Spirit move, and there were things. There was someone prayed in tongues and translated that in a way, but didn't do it at the time. But they came back with 2 separate people translating it. You could feel the Spirit. It was really weird for me. I could feel the Spirit moving. I was shaking and along those lines, and it was transformational to the point I just left. By the way, I don't even remember that. As you say, you gave us free rein. I just left and walked home through a cemetery and came back a couple of hours later. But the thing that I found a little bit strange, no one actually asked where I was and what I was doing. No, for 2 days, for 2 hours. You mean 2 days I would go away. So parenting was loose. Along those lines.
Sorry, kids, it's not that loose anymore.
No. But yeah, really wanted to just emphasise a couple of other things that we really appreciate. Really appreciate that servant leadership style that you do. And I think that's obvious in the way you interact. You don't take the glory, you will do things behind the scenes, you will stimulate people to do things. They don't even know that you'd have guided them to that particular point. People have talked enough about your serving side of things. I really appreciate the foundation that you have. Let's go to one of those children's talk things. I've really missed those. You were very good at children's talks, by the way. But there was one that you used to do when you were visiting. And by the way, when you're a kid and your father's got a trick that he's at visiting churches and you have to see it again and again, the novelty wears out. But anyway, so you got a tray and you used to build sandcastles. And you build a sandcastle and then you put a building on it and you build one on a rock and then you tip water over it and of course the sand one washed away and the rock stood firm. But that's where your faith is as well. So that's really good. And your faith has been amazing and transformational for us all. So really, really appreciate you both and really love you lots. And yeah, really appreciate that. And there hasn't been that much trauma, to be perfectly honest.
Thank you, Lance. You can take a seat. Thank you very much for sharing that.
You've heard a lot of things tonight. Did you ever envisage you'd be in ministry for 42 years when you began?
I thought it'd be about 1 week. I will explain. We turned up at South Dunedin and I was greeted as the Lady of the Manse. Now, South Dunedin at that time was very traditional and I just didn't know how I was going to cope. So, yes, but 42 years later I managed.
It was quite amazing. I mean, because Jill came from a non-Christian background, and just some of the you don't know sometimes if you're not in a church environment just how different it can be to what the general public was. And yeah, I admire you for that, darling. You stuck in there over that. Following on from that, I never thought. We never thought we'd be in a church like DCBC, a middle-class church, actually, because Mike shared about those verses, and I always thought that we would be in a lower socio-economic communities, and so it was actually quite remarkable, really, when it was Lance Christie walked into my office one day when I was in South Dunedin and said, "I believe you should be in DCBC." And actually, I knew right at that time that that was right. But if it hadn't been for someone like that saying that, it would never have been here. It had to go through a process, obviously, but so it's just fascinating, the journey that God took us on. So never expected that. And a couple of other times when we were here, even there's a couple of times that we very nearly went to Asia. You know, I mean, Cambodia's, I feel like sometimes like a second home, and very nearly went to Asia. But again, felt God's call was more to be sending people rather than to going ourselves.
So as you look back through all of these years, and I imagine you give testimony to the Lord and to people that you've served with, but what has been most important to you guys? 42 years.
Yeah.
I will get my glasses.
I think some of the most important things were in South Dunedin, working with children. The craft group at Forbury School, working in youth work with Paul wherever he is, with Kay in starting up the Rainbow. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I think later it's been working, which hasn't been in the church, but in my jobs, and I've been privileged to have some really rich and interesting work. So, yeah.
It's interesting when you reflect back, because you sort of, when you're going through this sort of stage, you do a bit of reflecting. And I think one of the things that, what do you look back on and what's important? One of the things for me, and this is going to embarrass Jill, but is actually seeing Jill flourish in her counselling ministry, and seeing now, because it's what's challenging about counselling is that it's so private and it's confidential, and all, so most people never know whatever goes on, and you're not meant to know. I mean, but in reality, hundreds, probably over the years, probably thousands, up into the thousands of people have been impacted by Jill's gift and ministry with counselling, and that to me has been one of the things that is really, really important. It's become more and more important to me. So, I mean, I think another thing is in this type of role, it's the privilege of being invited into people's lives when they're hurting and when they're broken and when they're struggling and when they're in pain, and having the privilege of people sharing their hearts with you and being able to share with them, walk with them, pray with them, and see God work in their lives. That is a privilege, and a deep privilege that people do that. I mean, you've heard some of the things, you know some of the heart, some of the things that about seeing people sent and all that type of thing. That's just who God's called me to be. And I actually, most of the things have been mentioned that are important to me. I have really valued just being able to, in the city, that seeing pastors come together to pray for the city. That first resurrection service back in, I think it was 2007, was incredibly powerful, where the Church of Dunedin came together, and because there's a history in Dunedin going way back to Lloyd Gearing where the resurrection was denied, and we at that stage believed that it was the 40-year anniversary of that statement being made that we needed to proclaim that Jesus was risen from the dead, and to see 2,000 people in the town hall acknowledging the risen Lord Jesus was incredibly powerful. And to be part of something like that, and to be part of just a small part of seeing what God's doing in this community. I mean, the God journey of coming onto this land and how God provided it, just to be part, that God's called you to be part, a small part of something like that, is incredibly meaningful.
And this may be just really following on from what you were saying, but I mean, 42 years is a long time to be passionate about ministry, Bruce. How have you done it? What's kept you both passionate about ministry and serving? That's kept you in this all this time?
I thought about this. I hadn't really given it much thought. I think earlier on, we were very young, and I think 28, 29. And I think I tried to fit in, to please people. And then after a little bout of depression, postnatal depression, I realised that God was telling me I just had to be myself. And I had to reflect and my own values and God's values. I think that has helped for me, in the many circumstances. I think a big one is learning to let things go. You know, you've heard there can be interesting things occur when you're in ministry. There can be trauma, you can have things happen that are hard. And I think I learnt to let things go, to keep on working at things till I was free of them and give them to God. I certainly learnt, and probably really early on, to trust God and to use His strength when mine had gone. I think something, a gift that God gave me, maybe quite a few years ago, but I always knew that God loved me. And that's been a real key. Whatever happens, I know God loves me. And I think God gave me that gift to help me get through things. Yeah, I think, another one, making sure I had a balanced life, that I was meeting people from all sorts of groups, that I was myself having other interests and things. So that's more connected with ministry, but yeah, it helped.
Thank you.
Again, just reflecting, Jill, again, just having someone who's wise and discerning has been a great gift to me, and her faithfulness in going through the hard times and believing in me and loving me has been very significant. And so have all my family. And I would say our 8 children and our 4 siblings and their 4 spouses, incredibly privileged to have the 8 of you all loving the Lord in a way that just is an encouragement to keep going ourselves. And I know one of our siblings would say that they sought to be the favourite of 4, but now they have to try to be the favourite out of 8. And that's a little bit more difficult, so they have to work harder on that. I'm not saying who it was, but I'd go to the next generation as well. I mean, 2 of our families are out of Dunedin, one Kirsty and Chris in Auckland, and Nick and Bronwyn and family in Invercargill. And for them, just having weekends away and visiting them, not as much as we could, but we'd love to do, and we will be able to do more. But it helps to keep the focus right. And the ones in Dunedin, do you know what I mean? On the Friday afternoons, the afternoon teas and the football. I'm still in training for football, so but they help. You know, when you've got so many other things in your life, just to be able to focus off they've really helped. And Maddie, the 17th of December, Tuesday, the 17th of December, afternoon tea. All right, because I owe an afternoon tea to Maddie because she keeps reminding me. But that's that. So the family have been very significant in that, and just seeing them love the Lord. There are some other things. Just holding on to God is not giving up. Do you know what I mean? Probably it's stubbornness to a degree. That's not a very nice word, I suppose. Stubborn. Probably I'm stubborn. I'm certainly competitive. But I think holding in there through the hard times. And persevering and holding on to God's promises, holding on to God, and knowing that God is faithful. And you may not understand and know what's going on, but if you hold on there, you know God will bring you through. And having that kind of determination or commitment to God. There are a whole lots of other things. I'll share some tomorrow morning, actually. I was trying to figure. So, but yeah.
All our children are here, and nearly all but one of our grandchildren. So thank you for coming.
And actually, just talking on that, so many of you I mean, I actually, it's reflecting on this. I have built so many friends through being involved in ministry at a very, very deep level. And Shelley shared on there, we came into the church in September 1996. Shelley left in December 1996. In those 3 months, we built a friendship that has lasted for life, or lasted since then. And Pastor Van Tar in Cambodia, and Trevor and Helen, and so many people in teams over the years. These guys, 21 years? How many? Oh, it's a good question. Oh, since the beginning of 2013. Right. It's a long time, I can't work that out, but that's 12 years. You've got to and others, so many others. Bruce Munro here, and Mike and Malcolm and Jen and Kate and there's just been so many others over the years. And you guys, just the love, the support, the encouragement, the prayer. Wouldn't be here without that. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, you too. The last guest, just briefly, is Andrea. Come on up, Andrea.
Hi, my name's Andrea, and I've known Bruce and Jill a really long time, actually since I was about 14 years old, when I went to Sunshine Baptist, which is now Musselburgh Baptist, and I didn't actually know you, but I knew who you were. And don't worry, I'm not going to go back to then and then talk since then. I'm just saying I have known who they are a long time. There's quite a lot I could say, but I kind of want to just cut to the chase. There's been quite a bit mentioned about all the things both Bruce and Jill have been involved in over the years, and particularly Jill with things outside of church circles. And I was asked to say a few words, and Jill, I'm just going to turn the spotlight on you for a few minutes. It's really right that tonight we acknowledge and honour and thank you, Jill, for your part alongside Bruce at DCBC for the last 28 years, and we're not going to let the opportunity go by, so that's what I want to do. A lot has been said, like I said, about what you've been involved in outside of church circles, but I want to mention Jill's contribution and part and role and significance inside church life. I'm sure that you can probably imagine, as a spouse of a full-time pastor over so many years, one's life and family life can very much revolve around Sundays and church calendars and pastoral needs that come up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at all sorts of different times. But there is also a thing of being a spouse of a full-time pastor that is very unseen, I think, and that is the fact that one tends to know a lot about what's going on in church life and is often right in the very thick of it, sometimes in the thick of a storm. And no one necessarily sees that, and one can be quite invisible, and yet one is a soldier right in the middle of a battle or a storm. Not always battles and storms, often other very good things as well, but there are battles and storms, and there's a load to carry alongside the pastor you're married to. And I want to, on behalf of our whole church, I want to acknowledge, Jill, how you have protected our church and cared for it and loved it, and done the same for Bruce, protected and cared and loved Bruce, and honoured the Lord and amongst it all, who you love deeply and have sought to follow with all your heart. I especially want to acknowledge how you, Jill, have done this with a quietness and a patience and endurance and steadfastness and with faithfulness over a long time. You've been a very key and strategic person and in a very key and strategic position in our church, and you have been so faithful in walking through the last 27 years alongside Bruce. And I am not sure how many people know the extent of that faithfulness and steadfastness and endurance and patience. So I want to tell you. There are two short verses that I want to read that I think are really fitting for Jill. And this is the first one. It's mentioned 3 times in the Gospels, so I won't give the references. But it says, "Whoever can be trusted and is faithful with little can also be trusted and is faithful with much." And I personally don't know all the littles over the years that you've been trusted with, Jill, but I do know some of the much. And you have been very trustworthy and faithful with much. And the other verse is Isaiah 30, verse 15. This is what the Sovereign Lord says: "In repentance and rest is your salvation, and in quietness and trust is your strength." And Jill, you have demonstrated such strength in a quiet way and such strength in your trust in the Lord over all this time. So we want to say thank you and honour you.
Can everyone please stand? Bruce and Jill, we want to thank you for 42 years and 28 in DCBC. And tomorrow we'll present you with some gifts. You're going to be speaking. You're going to be leading communion as well. And we'll pray for you tomorrow. But we just want to end by thanking you. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming.